Brent while he's setting up. Brent, can you speak, please?
We're almost ready.
Yes, I speak very nicely.
Almost
more.
English.
Okay.
Almost English.
West Virginia.
Okay. I see that we are streaming.
We're streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We're about to start the Gillmor Gang. And I see that Brent has received the message, the notification that we are streaming live. Thank you, Brent. Alrighty, guys, looking good. And places everybody. Steve, you ready?
What do you think? On or off? On, off.
Off. All right.
I think it makes me look weak and ineffectual. I'll go with that. Okay, let's do it.
All right. Mute is off. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and.
Hi, Steve Gillmor here, and that's Frank Radis's hand over there.
But we don't see that.
Oh,
We
Well,
just see you.
we'll get to it. So
No, it's called television, and it's called editing, or it's called, streaming, and it's called editing.
yeah, then this is the part we're going to edit out. Okay.
The Gillmor Gang.
Yeah, this is the Gillmor Gang, and he's already joined us from New York is Frank Radis. Welcome, Frank.
Hello, Steve. Hello, gangsters. It's a pleasure to be here again with you all on this fine sunny day. Actually, that's what it looks like outside. I just am now using that still image.
Of what it looks like?
It's exactly what it looks like outside at this exact moment. Well, maybe 20 minutes ago.
How do you get those buildings to blur like that?
Actually, I have an app called Superimpose, and you put an image in it, you can blur the image and then spit it back out blurred, and then use it as a background.
Very clever.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Thank you. It's a little bit of work, but if you knew me, you'd know that I don't do very much work. So
And
that's not.
scene. All right. The voice that we just heard in Massachusetts, who's now playing games with his blur, is Dennis Pombriant. Welcome, Dennis.
I'm just a blur. Hey, hi, Steve. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be here on a late November Friday afternoon.
Yahoo.
I won't say which one.
How cold is it there?
Surprisingly nice. It's in the upper 40s. I was just
It's
out with the
actually
dog.
in the it's in the mid 60s here. One day we got this one day, and then it goes away in about 2 hours.
Yeah,
I'm
we had
very-
that weather yesterday.
We're in California. Everything's fine out here.
Who asked?
Yeah,
Froggy and cold and rainy.
Shh.
you have no weather.
Joining us from Palo Alto in California is Keith Tier.
What an enormous pleasure it is to join your collective company once again on this fine Friday.
Yeah, well, what do you really think?
I said what I thought off air. Tina's still grimacing from the blast.
Do you have sunny weather down there?
No, we have the kind of the cloud coverage from the coast is reaching Palo Alto today. So we have
Wow.
white skies.
That's impressive. Okay. So
What do you mean down there? You mean up there?
no. He's
Over
Where are
there.
you?
He's down
south of
there.
us.
Yes. You know,
Oh,
if
he's south of you.
you
Yeah.
turn left at Greenland, what's that a quote from?
Exactly. I mean, what I can tell you is that this is news, and I have not yet publicly disclosed it anywhere else. This is for the gang.
This is real breaking news. Like
I
we can
have just
say breaking-
closed. I have just closed at the ripe old age of 67, which proves that ageism is not a problem. I have just closed $5 million of investment into my new startup called Signal Rank Corporation that I am the CEO of.
Whoa!
Excellent.
Hey,
Good
Keith's
job.
house.
Hey,
Way
can
to
I
go.
borrow like $100?
Exactly.
You know what? Keith could actually buy those Gilmore gang tchotchkes for us now.
That's right.
That you guys,
He's got a line.
he could do that. He could do that as a charitable donation to a nonprofit.
Just because I assume some of my investors are watching, that will not be happening.
See, honestly, Keith, I gave you that opening. Please, you owe me.
Frank, I don't know about you, but I'm more of an influencer. I'm worth every penny that T-shirt will cost.
You and me both.
Joining us from the Georgia area is Brent Leary.
Yeah, I'm in Georgia, not the area. I'm actually in it. So
Well,
Yeah.
I say Atlanta, and of course you correct me. So I was trying to avoid that.
You could say Atlanta area
yeah,
will be accurate, but you
Yeah.
can't. Atlanta is not accurate.
right.
Yeah, I get this.
Wow,
Here's
what a
State
roll
Road
concept.
400.
And
What a concept.
lose the third. Thank you. From the Seattle area, now in blur. Where's my mountain, by the way? Oh, that's excellent. It's Michael Markman or some part of him.
Oh,
You
right.
know how that happened. I'm falling. Oh, take me off camera while I try and straighten out my world.
No.
Okay.
Oh man, we come off like a bunch of Luddites. It's crazy. And we aren't. Oh no.
Oh,
What do I do now?
This is my dinner of Andre
Michael,
2021.
this isn't as simple as turning your device around, is it?
No.
No,
there's
it's not
a
as simple as
button.
that.
There's a button you gotta push.
Keith, can you?
I know what I do. There, how's that?
What do you want me to do?
There we go. No, Michael's got it.
Has everybody been
yeah.
introduced? I believe so.
That's
Right?
good, Michael. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I think we've lost 90% of the audience already.
Ah,
That's hard
I
to
have.
do.
In some of
Well,
the
that's just the live audience.
Yeah.
This has been
You
good
can't
comedy.
lose
Come on.
90% of
When there are three people, how do you get to 90% of three?
oh, wow.
Exactly. It means somebody's only paying 1/3 attention.
And you only
stop
count them
talking.
as
Don't be
30%.
calling me out.
Doc Searles and I have the show that we do every decade or so called Attention Deficit Theater. And
When is it?
What?
And I'm doing an NFT of the URL, by the way.
When is the next
Yeah,
episode?
be
of that?
careful.
Any second now.
Yeah,
I
be
was
careful
gonna say,
with
I
that
could nominate
NFT.
some people for guest spots.
What?
What?
Whoop.
You,
Whoa.
you could. Sorry, my attention was deficited in a different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a one-track mind. We know what that is.
I'm staying away from that.
I
All right. So
don't have a
Brent,
clue.
I'm going to start with Brent, just so that
Really?
we're talking in now.
Oh,
Brent, what's cooking? What do you think is?
really? What's cooking? Really?
Yeah,
Today?
Brent, what do you
I
think?
mean, literally, you had to blur out what was cooking because we were all looking at your TV set to see certain things going down right now, of course.
Okay,
I
you
mean,
want?
Oh my God.
Well, somebody had to bring it up, and it's you.
It had to be me, I guess.
Okay, so are we horrified about the 11-1 white jury?
No, we're not horrified. We're not even surprised. To me, this is bound to happen. I don't see anybody that should feel like this is some surprise. Come on. The only surprise was it took, what, 3 days? I don't know how many days they actually delivered.
Yeah, I would say, what do you think about this concept? I think a lot of people aren't surprised, but they're still shocked. Because I know that when I heard the verdict, I just sort of stopped I knew what the verdict was going to be, but when I heard it, I just stopped and I threw my hands up and I went, oh, it was still a shock. It's like, and it's indicative of an even greater maybe not, but to me, it's indicative of this really horrible time we're in right now that just doesn't seem to want to get any better. That's why I'm moving to the UK.
It's enormously disappointing. And that's an understatement.
Understatement?
It's just hugely, hugely disappointing. You think we could move on from this? It's horrible.
Well, we got one more jury to come in, and that's down in Burlington, Georgia, with the Ahmaud Arbery trial.
Right.
They're in deliberation now.
You know, I actually do think, though, that because the prosecution was so strong yesterday in that trial, and the trial itself in Wisconsin just seemed off almost the whole time. You know, can the prosecution? I guess the prosecution can't do anything. Once it's over, it's over. But I think they're two different cases. I think that what's going to happen in the Arbery trial is going to have to be. Boy, I'll tell you, if it's not voted in favor of the defendant, in favor of the prosecution, I'd be surprised in that one. That would surprise me.
That's
What do you
the
think?
that's the one where the guys killed the guy running.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the march, the BLM march. I just thought that the prosecutor did such a great job, and especially when you heard that guy talk. I don't know if you listened to his testimony. When you heard that guy talk, in a sort of a
the cross-examination of the defendant in Georgia was superb, whereas the cross-examination in Wisconsin was not that good. I think the closing argument in Wisconsin was superb, but I think by that time the case had already been lost.
But did anybody think it was? I mean, the way that judge he was riding and dogging that prosecutor up in Wisconsin. Did anybody feel like there was a shot they were gonna win? Because that judge pretty much felt like he was on. It was almost 2 against 1 on that one.
I agree that it was probably the most shocking judging that I've ever seen. Sometimes you see a weak judge that loses control of the courtroom, but this was a strong judge who kept control and kept putting his thumb on the scale.
Yeah.
So is there any, and I don't have an answer to this, so I'm asking, is there any recourse on the part of the prosecutors in that case to go after that judge and either get that trial rescheduled, redone, or have the verdict?
No, you can't redo the trial because of double jeopardy once he's acquitted.
Yeah.
But there might be, as there was in the OJ case, a civil case brought against
Rodney King. Or Rodney King.
Yeah.
In the case of Rodney King, a state jury found for the police, and president at the time was George Herbert Walker Bush, who ordered the Justice Department to prosecute on civil rights charges. And the federal case was ultimately successful.
Can I go back to the judge? Didn't it feel like he kind of turned it into some kind of a, I don't know, game show? He's letting the guy that's on trial, pick out of the hat the jurors. I mean, what the hell is that? I mean, I've never seen
exactly.
Let me pick out your jury. Just pick out the numbers in the hat here. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
I never thought that
because it won't matter. It'll never get to them anyway. Go ahead, do it. Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. All the names are. No, anyway, I just found that very odd, but I'm not in court.
There were 3 or 4 very odd moments in that trial based on things that judge did. There's no doubt about it.
So in another depressing development, it appears the Republicans are going to take over the House and Senate in 22.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, it won't matter to me.
Well, if you,
Frank is out.
I'm Gandhi.
yeah, you can deal with Boris Johnson.
Well, I think that if I count my chickens, he'll be dealt with before I get home.
Well, that's good.
What does that
I mean,
mean?
look, there's one thing about the way that the Brits can do it. They can literally go, we don't like you, get out. And that's
But you still have the Tories to contend with, don't you?
yeah, but you pick them off. You can pick them off a little bit differently.
I mean, anytime I see a headline that says Democrats in disarray, I say, well, at least they're not the Labor Party.
Hey, we got a comment from Facebook from Christian Burns.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
This is classic. I don't know which part was classic, but maybe you tell us what's classic. I have no idea.
Christian's a long-time viewer.
Well, then
And a one-time participant.
He. Mhm.
then he should know what's classic then.
Yes,
right?
he will.
There it is. It's good.
I think that hat is classic.
Okay. So moving on.
Well, am I wrong? Am I wrong? No, I'm not.
Can we talk about the hours that Kevin McCarthy stood up and
Yeah, that was what I was not want to talk about next. Is
Well, but was it? I mean,
8.5
he was
hours.
Successful.
Eight
He
and a
was
half.
successful. He pushed the vote a day. He got the vote pushed by a day, and I think that's.
he was
If
successful.
I'm not.
For what he was.
Yeah,
Are
saying.
you
in
buying the
forcing
media
the vote.
narrative here? Oh, come on.
Well,
What a
you don't
phony,
think that
non-existent story.
all he wanted to do was to move the vote to a day later?
Yeah, so he was.
And
Well, explain that. What does he gain by pushing the vote a day later?
thank you, Michael.
I don't know. Hey, don't
No,
ask me what he
and
gained.
Lawrence
Just-
O'Donnell, Lawrence O'Donnell explained Kevin McCarthy as well as you can. You may recall early yesterday, Mark Meadows on the Steve Bannon podcast said that Trump should be Speaker of the House if the Republicans retake it. So basically, Mark Meadows was doing a campaign speech for Speaker just to prove to the Trump faction that they don't need to replace him with Trump.
You mean Kevin McCarthy?
Kevin McCarthy, yes.
Uh-huh. And how's that going for him?
Well, the problem is, he's bad. That's the problem.
What was bad about it? I mean, either Frank is right and he was successful, or you were right and he, to what end?
Well, to determine whether he was successful or not, you have to define his objective. I mean, and pushing the bill a day later, if that was his objective, was a pretty damn stupid objective.
I don't disagree with that one. I
But
totally
I'm not
agree
sure
with
that
what you
that
say,
was his
Michael.
objective. His objective
Yeah.
was to show that he is the leader of the Republican faction, because that was challenged yesterday.
Yeah,
By Mark Meadows.
they all seem to be vying for a chief crazy officer, basically. Hello.
I get it.
Silence your phones.
That was my MacBook Pro.
CCO, Chief Crazy Officer. Oh, I like that.
I mean, it just turns out that the Republican Party in Congress is basically a party of trolls. The most successful are the rashest trolls, and McCarthy has to join that party.
The
It's the only way to live
rashest
there.
troll. Wow. It's not bad. It's bad enough, not bad enough being a troll, but a rashest troll. That's pretty bad.
I think he mispronounced that word.
Yeah, which word? Troll?
Well, I was just gonna stick rashest.
Troll.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're knocking them down. It's like, boom, gone. Next topic. Anything happening in the tech world?
Next up.
Keith,
Wait a minute. Can we say something about the fact that BBB passed the House?
good luck.
Wait a minute. When you say that, was it Build Better Back or Build Back Better? Which one passed? Because I'm not. I want to make sure I got it right.
the Get Back on Thanksgiving film.
I would characterize both as having a much better title, which is Focus on Fixing the Past, as opposed to Building the Future. It's like holes in roads.
Mm.
Oh, I you know,
It's a
excuse
bit
me,
like, you
your-
know, if
your Marxist
instead of
philosophy
buying-
is showing.
if instead of buying new clothes, I donned the holes in the elbows of my old ones.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm in favor of.
and
$1
what
trillion
about the broadband investment?
That's
What
what
about the electrical vehicle investment? What about the tax credits for electrical vehicles? What
They're all
about
spoken like a true
the
progressive.
universal pre-K?
I'm
I mean,
talking about
you
the
know-
marketing, Michael. Build Back Better is backwards looking, but the word back shouldn't even be in there.
That's a
I don't
Republican
dis-
crap.
I think-
That's a good point. That's a good point.
No, I
Yes,
disagree.
you're right. That is a line that needs to be finessed when they're out there in the world. Michael, I thought your comments to me about that they were playing the local card pretty strongly was something that I know you put a notation in there about what was here in New York, but I'm watching New York and I'm watching North Carolina. Maybe those things happen when all those people are actually on site in the various
Frank, I don't know
places
what
where
you're
they
talking about. I don't know. Can you explain?
pitching the Build Back Better bill is a function of the administration getting its people out there to actually talk to their constituents and to the public about what's in the bill, and that's what's been missing in my mind from sort of whatever their marketing strategy was. It seems to me that Michael and I were going back and forth on this, that their marketing strategy begins with that actually starting. So that I thought they should have done it sooner, but I can see that it would happen at a local level beginning immediately.
Well, yeah, there's no need to do it sooner because it doesn't exist. I mean, the first campaign was to get it passed. Now the campaign is to get reelected. It's pretty good timing if you happen to be in Congress because you're going back to your district for Thanksgiving and you've got something to talk about. And there's a campaign all next year where they will be in their districts and talking about it. So the marketing of this is just beginning, and it really didn't have to start any earlier as long as we get it passed.
Listen, I agree that it didn't need to start any earlier, but I would argue that it could have started earlier, even though it didn't exist, because you get the idea that people can start to have an understanding of what's in this giant bill or what the issues are in this giant bill, instead of just hearing about it on the newscast in a minute 30 spot that comes and goes. But that's just a matter of style of the way you want to get into it. I would have started it earlier, even.
Well, to a large extent, I don't think the Democrats had control of how the newscasters were covering it, because the newscasters are always covering the horse race and the trade-offs between one faction and another, and they want to make a drama about will this get passed? What will be in it? How much will it cost? And in countless interviews, I've heard Democrats trying to explain what was in the bill being cut off by the interviewers who wanted to know, is it going to be 1.5, 1.75, 2.1? What happened to 3.5? That was not something that the Democrats were pushing. That was something that they were roped into.
I was going to ask
Michael, that's bad journalism.
Can I ask Michael a question, which is, and this is an ignorant question, but maybe some of our viewers are equally ignorant. What is the status of Build Back Better when it comes to passing both houses? Is it 100% certain to pass now they've agreed, or is there still a question mark?
So it has only passed the House, and the House bill goes to the Senate. The Senate needs to debate it. We'll probably have a lot of amendments and may make some substantial changes to it. This is where the rubber meets the road, where we find out what Manchin and Sinema are willing to accept and not willing to accept. But the House has made it pretty clear that whatever the Senate passes back to them, they will endorse. So they're not expecting to get the bill back the way it is now, but they will pass it when it comes back to them.
So
do you know?
hang on a second. Hang on. Let's get Dennis a word in edgewise, please.
There's a big caveat involved here. I don't dispute everything that Michael said. That's the way it's supposed to work. I do know also, though, that while the House was having its debate internally, it was also frequently updating and debating with the Senate, or the Senate Democrats, so that everything that passed the House was acceptable to the Senate Democrats. So there may not be as much wrangling and horse trading in the Senate as you might expect. If the House has passed this bill, it's because the House believes, Nancy Pelosi believes, that the Senate is ready to do the same.
Well, I hope you're right.
Has anyone read the CBO report, or does anyone know anything about it? Because I haven't honestly seen anything that's been decisive.
Yes,
Well, what does it say?
It said it's $160 billion out of whack over 10 years, which is like $16 billion a year for 10 years, which is pretty tiny. And there's a discussion or debate about how much revenue the bill can actually generate from going after tax avoidance.
Yeah, the
really
CBO said they are not in a position to report or estimate that side of it. So there is a provision in the bill to do more enforcement of tax avoidance, and the administration, at least, is estimating that they will collect more than the deficit. So it will be a net plus, not a net minus.
So that's why there's been, a sea of crickets coming from the Republican side ever since the CBO report was delivered. They didn't see anything in there that was a giant red flag. There was nothing they could say.
And the other thing is that the things in the bill are very popular. So what are they going to say? No, we don't want to have people cap out their insulin payments. We don't want to have people cap out their childcare payments. No, we want you to spend as much as you have to get insulin. I mean, they can't argue against what's in the bill.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why they'll turn it into a discussion of freedom and liberty and avoiding masks and vaccines.
And the border.
And the border, yes.
Oh,
So
and Obama.
here's my
Obama. Don't forget Obama.
Yeah. So here's my executive summary. It's going to go to the House. They're going to to the Senate. They're going to dump the family leave provision. They're going to send it back. It's going to get passed, and it'll be law. And then there'll be a signing ceremony, and then people will get $7,500 off on electric cars, up to $12,500 on union-made electric cars. And there's going to be something to talk about in the midterms.
There's going to be a lot to talk about in the midterms.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's going to be very hard for any Senate Democrat to vote this bill down.
And I hope that when they talk about it, they say every Republican voted against this. Every Republican voted against limiting your insulin payments. Every Republican voted against child care credits. Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they've got to hit both the positive and the negative.
Yeah, but you know what? You just laid out a couple of great TV spots.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you do spots on each particular element of the bill, and you end it with, and every Republican voted against it.
Okay, so this sounds pretty good, right? Can we move on?
Absolutely.
Okay, what else?
Yeah.
What else? Unfortunately, places where Republicans have control of the state, they're working very hard to tilt the rules of election and post-election. So, if the United States had free and fair elections, we could relax, but we can't relax. The next challenge is to get the voting rights bills passed.
Am I right in saying that gerrymandering, as it's often called, only really works when it's a close fight? In other words, if the Democrats were really popular, you couldn't do enough at the gerrymandering level to win the election. It's only because it's so close that can happen.
Really depends on the district. Every district's going to be a little different.
It depends on each. Well, there are two levels of districts. There are districts for the state legislature, and then there are districts for Congress. And in some cases, if you look at it state by state, the gerrymandering. What have you got there? There's something.
Blurred. I don't know what, something wrong with your camera?
It says from the desk of Stacey Abrams, she's going national.
Oh,
That is good.
She's raising money.
Yes, she's good at that. But so in the case of the gerrymandering, for instance, in the Houston area, they've taken a district that is very heavily black and brown, and they've split it up into 4 and parceled it out into white districts. So that basically disappears. If you look at, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but if you look at places where the election was close, the gerrymandering is not close. Gerrymandering will make the outcome, like 8 seats to 2.
Right.
Whereas if you did it by
Austin, Texas is another good example. Austin, Texas has something like 7 congressmen because of gerrymandering. In order to dilute the urban population, they do a hub and spoke model and
right.
dilute it with.
You take
with
every little piece of take the city, divide it up, and put each little piece into a majority Republican district.
So if you
And
think,
suddenly
let me ask you a question. If you think that this is not good, what would your advice be to anybody to what they can do about this?
Run for school committee.
well, one thing to do is to start paying attention to your local elections, as Dennis said, with your school committee, your city council, and your state legislature. The other thing to do is support Stacey Abrams in her fundraising nationally. There may be some court remedies, but they become harder since the Voting Rights Act has been gutted. And the biggest thing is to put pressure on the Senate to find some carve out in the filibuster so that the Democrats can pass the 2 voting rights bills that are in the hopper.
So what makes you think that that anything is going to happen with the filibuster? Do you have any indication that that is going to be supported by any real vote?
Yes, actually, I don't know. I don't know anything about Sinema. She hasn't made anything clear at all. But Manchin has given some hints that he might do something. There are lots of proposals. It's not just kill the filibuster. There's a possibility of doing a carve out for a particular class of legislation. And there's the idea of going back to a talking filibuster. The idea that was proposed by Norm Ornstein, which was that right now, basically, you have to come up with 60 votes to move something into debate. Switch it the other way. Make it that you have to have 40% of all the people present and voting to continue a debate. And that makes it harder to say to filibuster, because the Republicans can't just say, I filibuster, bye-bye. They have to show up, hold the floor, stay in the House, wear their diapers, and actually talk about it. It raises the cost of doing a filibuster.
So what McCarthy did last night was to stand there for 8.5 hours. Pretty good commercial for, yeah, so what?
For the talking filibuster, absolutely. Go ahead, talk yourself blue in the face, and then we'll take a vote.
Yeah.
So it was a good thing, right?
It's important to know there is no filibuster in the House. What McCarthy was exploiting was something called the magic minute, which affords the speaker, the majority, and minority leaders virtually unlimited time to speak in the well of the House. What McCarthy did is frankly just what Nancy Pelosi did in 2018.
So Brent, you've been posting in the Telegram feed. What is the address of that, Keith?
t.me/Gillmor gang.
You've been posting some things that seem to be technology related in there. Do you remember any of those? And if so, why were they interesting to you?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
You too, huh?
I see something and I'm like, oh, that might look good, and I'll shoot it over.
Heads
Okay.
up.
Yeah, I do that.
I am not kidding. I have no idea what I posted. What?
I think it was an article about dementia.
But
Well,
And that's is anybody surprised that the technology media has disintegrated into a discussion about the filibuster?
Not really, but
this is interesting. I was thinking just that very second what the filibuster would be like if it were happening in the metaverse.
oh God.
Nice try, Frank. Nice
It
try.
would be so woke. You could make an NFT out of it and sell it for crypto.
oh, it would be great because you could wall it off in its own little universe and just have the metaverse go on and on.
Brent just left.
He was just walled off, and he is now an NFT. So he's only available to
I'm
people who
going in
actually.
solidarity.
The Icelandiverse is.
Hey, look,
where
did
he
you see
went.
that story about Quentin Tarantino trying to do NFTs from Kill Bill, and the movie company put a stop to it so fast it was, big lawsuit action going on in Hollywood for that.
Oh,
It's the first
that's
time
what
I've heard of
movie
it.
companies do. I didn't realize.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at
Movie
what I
company. What's that?
No, I'm just looking at what I posted.
The movie company asserted their rights, but I don't know if that's settled yet. Because what he's trying to put up are pages from his original notebook, not the final screenplay or not any part of anything.
Or
shot.
images
Clearly
from the wow. Then I don't know what the contract was and how complicated it was, but whatever. And even so, I'm sure it'll get resolved. I just thought it was kind of interesting that it was Tarantino, it was Kill Bill, and it was NFTs. All of that together just.
When you take money from the man owns everything, including the original writing, I suspect.
The man owns the music. Whoa.
If not, then lawyers will get sued. So
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
win-win.
Actually, in the case of Kill Bill, the man did not own the music. All of that music was owned by a lot of other people. So
Yeah, it was good music though.
it was great music. I saw an interesting thing also that Sting is about ready to unload his music catalog for $250 million. I didn't know he had that many hits or songs worth that much.
He's got a new album
You
too.
Take has been
Does he?
Every breath you
It's-
take has been sampled by more artists
Yeah.
in history than any other song.
It's the
Sting
current
plays a really good part in Only Murders in the Building, by the way. It's pretty funny.
I've been watching that, yeah. But the
It's-
key,
I've been a little disappointed in that. I've heard it's wonderful, and I just haven't seen that it's wonderful.
I'm with Michael.
Really? Oh, I loved
Yeah,
it. I thought it was
like, wow, Steve Martin, cool. Billy Crystal, no, but
Billy Crystal,
the
Mark
other
Short.
guy, yeah, Mark Short.
Martin Short.
Martin Short and,
Mark
but
Short
you-
was like
and
the Pence's.
Thought he was funny.
I
Sorry.
Chief of
didn't
staff.
say Mark
do.
Short, I said Mark.
no, they made a conscious effort to do understated humor that was, parodying real drama. I thought they did it very well.
Yeah, me too. I thought it felt different to me. And the casting has been pretty spectacular.
But the morning show has been really truly
Yeah.
great.
That's a good one.
It is. Yeah, I thought it's better. It actually has been getting better after season one. I thought season one was great until the end, and I didn't like it. And then it just started getting better. It's a good show.
Brought back lots
I'm
of
going to be
memories for
grumpy
you,
about
Frank.
that too. It's just bonkers now. I mean, it is just bonkers. It's like the writers sit in a room and say, "Okay, what crazy thing can you think of? What crazy thing can you think of?"
That is exactly what happened in the writers' room at the Today Show, by the way. What's really been disappointing though for me has been Foundation. I don't know about you, but I know, Michael, we were talking about this when it launched.
I haven't been disappointed. I
I-
stopped watching it after the first episode.
I've watched it. I've stuck with it, and it's a bit like you've got to love the concept to stick with it, because the execution of the drama and the story, which is challenging, I think, by the way, because there's a lot in the book that you can't really put on the screen. I
What
think
can't you put on the screen these days?
well, because it would be too long. They're having to tell a shorter version.
That isn't the problem with the Beatles series.
But it's like
Now it's 7.5 hours.
Yeah, but the Beatles had a
Really?
much
Oh my God.
shorter lifespan than the Foundation had.
Long time.
Yeah, when you're talking billions of galactic years
Steve
and-
didn't react.
and distances in parsecs instead of miles.
Exactly. But anyway, this
This is pre-cocaine, basically.
anyway, going back to
But
the
you know
Sting
what?
thing.
Did
Go
you think
back-
Dune worked? Did you think the new Dune worked? Did you see it?
I saw it. I thought it worked.
What,
But I haven't read the book.
sandworms?
I haven't read the book.
I don't know if
You
I
know,
saw it because I saw it on television. I didn't go to the IMAX theater. So can you say I saw Dune or not?
I did watch the new James Bond this week, which
How was it?
it wasn't as good as all the James Bonds, but it was the same. It was the same. They did a good job of being true to the story cadence.
I'm still
That
waiting
is
for you guys to
totally
make
good
the
enough.
best thing. You guys haven't mentioned Curb yet? Good Lord. I mean,
Now that's fantastic.
you can never go. Larry David
Yeah.
never disappoints. And he
Yeah.
still looks the same as he did when they started the show 20 years ago.
Well, this is his best one yet. The whole offensiveness towards the woke culture is so well done. It's like, if you don't cancel me, you're not serious.
It's hilarious. Go fix the toilet. Come on.
And John Cleese canceled himself this week. Did you see that?
No, what does that mean?
John Cleese was due to appear, I think it was at Cambridge or Oxford, I forget where. And some students started showing pictures of when he pretended to be a Nazi on Monty Python. And there was this kind of let's cancel Cleese moment. So Cleese decided to cancel himself. So he canceled on them, and then they reversed their cancellation to try to get him to come back. It was hilarious.
Wow.
Now, are you trying to cancel yourself by calling somebody a Nancy on?
Nazi,
What
I
is-
said. Nazi.
That's a Nazi. It's a different kind of thing. It's got a T in it.
Sometimes they
Brad,
are the
how we
same
doing?
thing, however, they are often the same thing. It's true.
You know what's funny about this? Once again, I'll go back to my
No, I don't.
my YouTube watching. I watch these reactions, and one of the best things that I see people react to for the very first time is Blazing Saddles.
Oh yeah.
A
Wow.
movie there's no way possible that could ever be made or remade today. But watch people like that have never seen it before go on and watch their reaction to it. First, they're like completely shocked and taken back. And that lasts about a couple of seconds before the laughter ensues. It's really interesting because Mel, he
Brooks.
takes shots at everybody in that thing. And once you get past that initial shock of did they really say that? Because people are not used to hearing the hard R, if you know what I'm talking about, or other words, and they're said so like Slim Pickens, which is one of my favorite movie characters of all time, is Slim Pickens is Taggart in Blazing Saddles. He just doesn't give a damn. Him and Harvey Korman. But it's amazing to see people who are kind of in the cancel culture watch something like that, or All in the Family, or something. You can't. There's no way you could be offended and still be alive.
Yeah.
If you weren't living back then, and now you're dealing with what's going on now.
Yep. I actually, when I was a political activist many years ago, when at the very start of this, which I'm going back 20 years now, we wrote a pamphlet called "The Right to Be Offensive," that was, in defense of offending people as a essential component of free speech. It didn't do very well then, but it might do better now.
That sounds like the Republican manifesto.
Well,
Yeah, well-
I think there's a distinction to be made between offending people out of malice to intimidate them, to be mean to them, to belittle them, and just being randomly offensive.
So
I mean,
let me ask you, Michael, if you were, I think it was today, it was Kennedy, who said to the candidate for a Biden position, who happened to have been born in the Soviet Union,
Oh, yeah.
with a PhD, he said to her, I don't know whether to call you doctor or comrade.
Right.
Which to
Well, he
which
was trying to be
someone-
funny. He was trying. He thought he was being cute and funny. That's what he was doing.
No.
Really?
I'm not sure. I don't know when. I don't know if Republicans are trying to be funny ever.
No,
They're
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
was. And he could. And this is a guy that's in Louisiana. He tries to come off like he's Gomer Pyle. Dude went to like Harvard or Yale or
No,
something.
he went to Oxford.
Oh
Brent.
yeah. So he knows what he's trying to do.
He knew exactly what he was doing, but I'm not sure which of the two sides of the coin him knowing what he was doing fell on. I mean, was he being obnoxious, and what did he expect to get from that? Was it actually obnoxious? Was he just being funny? And how many times can we be hit over the head with, "Oh, we're just being funny"?
He's
Well,
Gosar was just trying to be funny too, right?
Well, again, you
Oh, yeah,
you
but
have to
that-
segment the audience. Who is he talking to? He's not trying to get you to laugh. He's trying to reinforce the talking points that the Democrats are socialists, that their programs are socialist.
Yeah.
And there's something evil about anything the Democrats propose, because there's some residual leftover anti-communism from before the fall of the Soviet Union that they're hoping that they can still regurgitate and resonate with.
And the strategy of fighting evil with evil that's always going to work, right? I made you smile, Michael. That was important. That was an important bit.
But so much of communication has to do with resonance. It's not imparting new information. It's resonating with things that are already deeply in here and deeply in your gut, and triggering, hitting the notes that will get you to go, yeah.
So you're talking about rageism.
Certainly, rageism is the extreme of it. Absolutely,
No, it's not. It's that other word that is the extreme of it. I'm sorry if I'm being obtuse. It's
no. I'm just being slow.
It always boils down to racism. It's just it's just a horrible scourge, and and you know, look, it's bad in the UK too, Keith. You know that.
Well, racism is the, you know, it's like the after party to imperialism and colonialism. Racism doesn't exist only in the minds of people. It exists in the history of the West. Why? Because it developed first and took everywhere over and turned everyone into supply economies to consumption in the rich countries. And, you know, racism is, you could reduce it down to, what do you think of the people that lost, who turn out to be mainly black and brown? And, you know, they're only just now stopping losing because of fighting back. So to me, racism, unfortunately, racism is always treated as something that only exists in people's minds, but it doesn't. It exists structurally in the whole history of society. And therefore fixing it requires more than changing minds. It requires changing behavior and how people are treated. You know, schools is where it starts. How come there's such thing as poor schools and rich schools, bad teachers and good teachers in different neighborhoods? It's structural.
Yeah.
Well, there you've just outlined the whole debate on CRT. There's a polarized position there. There are some people who want to define racism simply as personal prejudice. I have a bad opinion of this group, and there are other people who are saying no. What you said, these are structural residues from long-standing exploitation, going through colonial exploitation, going through enslavement. The racism was a couple of things. One was a whole series of ideologies constructed to justify one race dominating another. And the other is a series of laws and legal and economic structures that became a residue that we're still dealing with.
Yeah.
There's one black family in the walking radius of my house. One black family. Why is that?
Well, I have
Nobody
a
wants
friend.
to live near you.
I guess so, but yeah, I guess so.
I have a friend here, Clarence Wharton. Clarence is from Virginia, and Clarence built a web company and sold it to VeriSign on Network Solutions years ago for about 60 million, and made himself a decent pile of money. And he decided to move to Palo Alto. And I told him not to, but he did. And he's never been able to raise funding ever since, despite the fact that he's a really good entrepreneur and he's done a lot of good new ideas. He's never really been able to raise enough funding to get them to take off, because Palo Alto is deeply racist. It is deeply racist.
Well, you've talked about this before. There are two different addresses. There's Palo Alto and East Palo Alto,
Yeah.
and they are not the same city.
But when you meet people who are racist, I remember my wife's South African, and back before Mandela was released, we went to Cape Town, and I met her grandmother, who was raised in Bloemfontein, German Dutch background, who ran the opera and the theater there. She was a highly, highly cultured woman. Interesting, funny, totally racist at a structural level. I mean, she just didn't believe we were the same species. And she wasn't like a bad person aside from that. And it was deep, you know, so you could have sent her to school and educated her. It wouldn't have made any difference. It's these ideas come from, you know, centuries of history. And so you've got to change history. It's about changing history. That's why Malcolm X was so right, even against Martin Luther King. You have to do fundamental change.
I almost agree with some of that, but here's something to think about. What we're iterating around is not racism, it's culture. And what we have, at least in America, just to make it a little simpler, is a culture that tolerates racism. But we also have a culture that has some high ideals, like the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and other concepts like that. I think the thing that you change isn't history. You're not going to change history. The thing that you change is culture. And the way you change culture is by turning your back on history and saying, from this day forward, we pursue a new culture. That's not easy. Not everybody's going to go with you on that. But it's
I live in the South, man.
Hey,
People
wait a minute.
right
Isn't
down
that
the street with rebel flags and talk about the South shall rise again. Stone Mountain with all, you know, the Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and all those folks.
I'm with you, but just understand that 4 kids from Liverpool changed the entire culture of the world, not immediately, but over time.
Well, not down here, they did.
No, but look, let me give you
I think it was worse before, Brent.
Let me give you the South African example. South Africa, Mandela was released. The ANC did become the government. You go to the Parliament building now, and most of the people sitting in it are black. However, when you land at Cape Town Airport, for the first 10 miles, you see shanty towns with people with no running water. And when you get to your in-laws' house, you know, the people doing the cleaning are black, and there's kids begging at every traffic light or selling stuff. And so changing culture, which you'd think in South Africa they did do, hasn't changed economics at all.
Oh, I don't
Why?
think
Because the willingness to sacrifice white wealth to equality just isn't there. even
I don't think
even
they
amongst
changed
the
culture
ANC.
whatsoever in South Africa, and I don't think that has happened very often in human history. However, it's in my estimate what needs to happen, and I think it's much easier to build a new culture. For example, building the new American culture in the 18th century than it is to change a culture, which is why I say turn your back on history.
Actually, I agree with that, Dennis. I mean, you have to draw a line and act differently. But to be honest, the lesson from South Africa is maybe not relevant here, or maybe, I don't know. But the lesson from there is people in power, no matter what the color of their skin, need to be motivated to affect the lives of poor people. And they don't always do it.
Okay, I have to interrupt here because Frank has about 3 minutes. You want to change the subject? You want to say what you think?
Yes. The first thing I want to say is I'm really glad that I turned the subject towards this topic, and no, I actually don't want to make a put on the brakes and make a turn. This is too important a topic to do that with, and it's really permeated. So, it's funny. One of the things that you were saying about you have to stop where you are and abandon history and move forward to change the perception makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, how many of those who we feel differently about are not paying attention to history at all? And there is a big change going on in America.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. That's it.
I'm having trouble understanding how you abandon history.
I'm not sure if abandon.
I mean, history is not just what is written in history books, and history is not just what is in the archives of various legal and constitutional documents. History is embedded in everybody's family wealth or lack thereof. It's embedded in everybody's home zoning laws or lack thereof, in the density of housing. I mean, all of that is part of history. History,
you're right.
History
about
is
that.
in our literature. All of our literature
I'm not sure
contains
if
history. I just don't understand how you draw a blank slate and say, now we're going to go.
No, you're right, Michael. You're right. You can't. By the way, history wasn't planned either. History was what happened due to the key drivers in society, which at various points were the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the armies and navies that were built on top of all of that. History kind of happened in real time. Nobody had a plan, apart from maybe a short-term plan. And so when you look at history, there's no one to blame. It is what it is. But the future history is based on what we decide to do today. So I agree with Dennis and you on that. But then you got to decide to do something.
There are, to circle things back, some things in the new bills that were passed that are meant to deal with some historical injustices. For example, if you look at the Cross Bronx Expressway, for one example, we've got this big interstate system that we celebrate that came up in the Eisenhower era. Well, there's a question of, well, where do you put those roads? Whose houses do you take to put those roads? And where do you think they put the highway in the Bronx? They put it in the middle of a poor mixed race neighborhood and dividing it. Just put this scar in the middle of the community. And now in the new bill, they want to build over that highway, to build parks to reunite the community that was divided on a racist basis. I don't think anybody specifically said, "Oh, let's just stick it to the dark people," but they did it. They did stick it to the dark people, and now we're trying to undo that.
Good luck with that. That's kind of like trying to get your virginity back.
Well, if you can build over the highway and build a park and build pathways and make something wonderful over what was just a scar and a noise, you're doing some good.
I think if
You know, we did
were-
that in Boston. It didn't work. I mean,
if-
it's very successful as a piece of civil architecture, but you know, the past is gone. The people who lived there are gone. They've done other things, and what you got is a kind of rebirth, but you're never going to knit those neighborhoods back together.
I think what you've got is a bunch of false paradigms that become obviously false once they're solved. So like in South Africa, the paradigm was apartheid's the problem. Then they get rid of apartheid, and it turns out the problem really isn't any different. It's the same problem. Why? Because apartheid was only symptomatic of the problem. The underlying problem was the different life expectation in terms of what they could achieve of Black and white people in South Africa, which has barely changed since the end of apartheid. So the deeply rooted thing is in economics. It's sharing the spoils. In a growing economy, you can share the spoils by growth. In one that isn't growing, like South Africa, even shrinking, you can't. So then someone has to make a sacrifice for equality, and no one wants to do that. So it ends up, I actually personally think it's all to do with the C word, capitalism. I think capitalism is not yet sophisticated enough to produce enough wealth to fix inequality. Therefore, it's a struggle. As Marx said, the class struggle ends up being taking from A and giving to B is the only way in the absence of growth. So the real future is all about growth, which is why I believe in technology so much. Growth solves all problems if you want to solve them. Even if you want to solve them without growth, it's hard to solve them.
Well, yes, the old rising tide lifts all boats story. But if you look at what's happened over the past few decades, there's been growth, but most of the spoils have wound up in the hands of a few people,
Yep.
not broadly.
Yep.
So growth itself is not the cure.
I agree. Growth is a precondition, but not a solution.
Yeah.
Education and time.
Well, and intent as well, I think, Tina, conscious intent, because intent is hard, right? People want to avoid it because it involves difficult conversations about haves and have-nots. And the haves will never, historically at least, agree to give things up for the have-nots. You have to take them. That's why there's revolutions in history.
I think our children's generation is dealing with these things pretty well, pretty openly.
Yeah, better, yeah.
At least that's what I see in our family. They are very aware. How involved they get to make changes, I'm not sure, but they are super aware of racism, of bias, of things that have really kept our country from going, redirecting or correcting its path. And that's why I say education and time, because it does take a lot of time.
But even with education and time, you still need actual resources to be allocated to actual things.
It does take time, but in my span of living here, living through the 50s and 60s, I had a huge amount of optimism. I saw the civil rights movement. I saw the women's lib movement. I saw the gay rights movement. And there just seemed to be so much progress happening in so many directions, in so many areas. And lately, over the last 10 years, 15 years, I've seen regression. And it's very discouraging. So there's more than just the passage of time involved.
Yeah.
I think there's both.
What I want to see is a generation of social engineers that are actually figuring out what to do in the system, as opposed to being pessimistic about the system.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Do we see anything that indicates?
Well, read the bills that were passed. I mean, they're definitely trying to do that. They're definitely
But, I mean,
looking at that.
the fundamental issue of the bills, yeah, I think it's definitely a positive direction that we're going in with those bills. But the country has clearly indicated that they want to have a split government where doing anything is much more difficult than doing nothing.
Yep.
Well, okay, I want to challenge that. It's not the country. There are factions in the country. And that's part of the problem. There are factions, and the factions are in conflict, and the conflict between the factions is fairly evenly matched. So yes, I guess you could
So
say
how did you
collectively
challenge
the
that?
country wants divided government. The reality is the country is divided.
Oh, okay. I'll agree with that. Will you agree with what I said, which is what indication is there that either side is going to have enough voting power to actually make fundamental change?
So there's a lot of indication that the forces of repression and menace have enough power to prevent fundamental change. I think that the next election will be an indication of which way things will go. Rationally, there's a whole lot for the Democrats to run on, but structurally, it's a very steep hill for them to climb. And I don't know if they can climb it.
Right. So basically what you're saying is this is why you're depressed and pessimistic, is because you feel that the wrong side is gaining traction.
No, this week I think the right side has gained a lot of traction. I think that advances are being made on both sides, but I think by and large this was a very good week for the forces I'm rooting for and the forces I'm supporting.
So
I'm less pessimistic today than I would be last week.
Excellent.
See what happens next week.
Brent, any comments?
No, I talked so much the first part. I kind of
I know it wore you out.
Yeah, I don't have the stamina like I used to.
But you've got what's going on in the world of live streaming?
That's one of the things I did post. Now when I went back and looked at Telegram, there was an interesting article from the The Hollywood Reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Why streamers are stalling on sharing data.
And why are they?
I haven't read the whole article yet. but
Well,
no,
Frank would give you an answer, but he's not here. So
no, I think it's kind of interesting.
I can make some guesses.
Data is power. I mean,
yeah.
you don't want to share your power if you don't have to. And these, like, I guess traditional TV, you had Nielsen and they had the numbers, and they were kind of the ones, the arbiter and the end all of what TV shows kind of you got put on the air because they had the numbers. And now it's not.
And also remember the old TV world was advertising supported, so the numbers affected your revenues. The numbers in a subscription model don't affect your revenues, and it becomes a competitive advantage not to let your competitors know what's working for you and what's not.
And they say the numbers, they're sharing very nebulous because I think, like Michael said, why should we give you the deep and gritty details? Because that's what we're going to use to create more content that hopefully get the kind of numbers that we need for subscriptions to stick around.
I mean, everyone in the online world, I mean, all the big platforms, whether they're streaming or internet platforms, are tweaking based on monitoring what people do. How engaged are people? How long do they watch? What do they watch? When do they click away? That's all very valuable information.
I hope MSNBC.
Pardon?
I hope MSNBC is monitoring what it is that I turn off, because I'm turning it off more and more as.
Well, I don't know if they have access to it. You know, unless you're watching one of their streaming platforms. If you're watching cable, they don't know what you're doing, do they?
What's it? Oh, streaming platform.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching Peacock, they can monitor what everybody's doing, or at least aggregate it. I don't know if they can on their cable feed.
Well, whatever the smart TV is that you're watching it on, they can monitor it. And are.
They want you to watch. They don't want you to watch, traditional TV. They want you to stream because that creates all this metadata that allows them to have even more power over, their own, I guess, have their own power over their own destiny. I mean,
have you seen these shows on broadcast TV these days?
I don't even watch. The only thing I watch on broadcast TV is sports.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So basically, we're voting with our feet away from the advertising model and towards subscription. Is that what you're thinking?
Just think of if there was a broadcast TV show that had 17 billion views like this Squid Games thing did. Could you imagine how much they would be making out of that, and how they would be touting it, and we'd be getting hit upside the head with just these three networks that had that. The fact that Netflix created something in South Korea, and I think the guy who did the story got $2 million or something like that, and he's kind of complaining about that's all he got. But they were able to create something that got 17 billion views on like a shoestring. Why would Netflix want to give up any more information than they have to? I mean, the broadcast company, they didn't have a say or a handle in that. They couldn't say, well, they were on our platform, and so we made that. No, they got they did their research. They looked at their data. They've been investing in all these different kinds of content and all these different languages across the world. And some of these suckers are going to hit like that one. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the traditional broadcast, ecosystem.
Mhm.
Why would they feed that if they don't have to?
Well, they don't, and they don't.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know if anyone else does this, but I have not put my smart TVs online. I have an outboard box that I feed into my smart TV, but my smart TV doesn't report to anybody what I'm doing. My box does.
I keep mine
And my
online.
TiVo does, but not my TV.
I keep
So-
mine
so
online.
there's-
because I'm obsessive about firmware updates, and I can't stand it if there's a firmware update I haven't got. So I keep the Ethernet plugged in.
Well, that's where you and I are a little different, Michael. I want them to know what it is that I don't like.
The interesting thing about Roku too, I think their last quarter, they made 500 million on ad revenues. Their last quarter. They're not a device maker. They are an advertised seller. In the guise of here's our device. They're making probably more off of that because ad revenue is profitable. It's like, if you're able to create something and then generate a huge customer base or whatever viewership, you're printing money because that's constantly putting out data. And we all know, I've been saying this a lot lately, what's that old saying about you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him to fish, he'll eat forever or something like that. I prefer a little bit of a varied diet, but that's
Old saying is a bit of a interesting way of describing that biblical story.
Well, it was back in the day.
There's an open source book from
That's
Catfish.
Yeah, but the digital analogy to that is if you give somebody, some money, a couple of dollars, they'll eat for a day, I guess. They could go to get a Big Mac or something. But if you give them a whole bunch of data, they can then monetize the data, until the cows come home, so to speak. So you're literally seeing this play.
unfortunate phrase there.
We've gone from fish to beef now.
Well, the inflation thing is real. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this is, to me, this is kind of fascinating. It's like, these folks, I remember when House of Cards, remember when they were the first one of these Netflix kind of things to win one of those fancy awards. I can't remember if it was a an Emmy or an Oscar or whatever
I
the
think
hell.
they got the Me Too award.
Well, that's what Kevin got.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was the first sign that, broadcast television was going away because he didn't even need them to win one of those fancy awards. And now you can get 17 billion views off of something that you made, on a shoestring, and it's completely out of that, network. So it's amazing. And then how about this? Wow, somehow I got a second win. Have you seen these TikTok commercials where they're advertising this and they're all doing this thing like this? All these different people doing this. That's because there's some dude that I had never heard of. His name like Cabby Lame, and he's like somewhere in Africa. If you look, this dude has like 100 million followers on TikTok. Nobody ever heard of this guy before. Now they're making commercials about him doing this. And it's because he's cashing in. He's got 115 million followers. He's never been on TV a day of his life before this commercial. It's amazing what's going on right now.
I'm going to do one where I do this, see if it takes off.
I could tell you what I think will happen.
Going back to MSNBC, I think there's a bit of a different narrative to do with the news versus streaming. Like earlier on, every show we talked about was on Apple TV Plus, and Apple TV Plus and HBO are just awesome because A, the content's good, and B, there's no ads. That's what I like. Now, news, it feels to me as if MSNBC has bought the narrative that you have to be tribal, because every single show on MSNBC, maybe not every show, but a lot of them now, are completely tribal, as in the same narrative is repeated over and over again with the same examples every single day. And it just gets monotonous. Even when you agree with them, you think, do I need to hear this again? So I just think there's this tribalism around news where real good quality discussion between people who disagree just doesn't happen.
Okay.
Well, yes, I agree. But
You agree to disagree is what you
no, I agree. I agree to agree. What is labeled news today is not what used to be labeled news, and I think it traces back to Roger Ailes and Murdoch and Fox News. They were the first ones who discovered for television that you could serve a tribal audience with a tribal view of the news. And
interesting quote, by the way, of
MSNBC came to it lately. I mean, they weren't originally doing that, but the audience taught them that that's how they get there.
Rupert Murdoch was quoted yesterday as saying that it was time for Trump to go away.
I saw that.
Hey, guess what? Rittenhouse not guilty of all charges.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that earlier, didn't we?
I missed the punchline. I didn't realize that the jury was in.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, actually, nobody explicitly said it, but that's what we were talking about.
and I don't know if you're still listening, but Loic Lemure in Twitter says, "I'm impressed the Gillmor gang is still going. How many years, Steve?" ?
Good question. Anyone know?
Well, I could give you the Gillmor answer, which is, I don't know, 5,
No.
and I'd be wrong.
I think it's about 6.
You count years like Jack Benny.
Well,
It's always your 5th anniversary.
Loic Lemure had a conference, a really, really good conference called, I forget. And
Wow. Okay.
and the Gilmore Gang was on that. I believe Jack Dorsey was on that particular episode. And so that was what?
I think we did Loeb a couple
What year?
of times.
Yeah. No, there were, well, what's
no.
the date? 2004, maybe?
Oh, no, it was after that. It was
It was post TechCrunch. It was around 2008 through 2012 is my guess.
yeah, I'd say it was around 10. But
So Loic, is that helpful?
no, that's not when it started. I'm pretty sure it started around 2005.
I remember doing the Gilmore Gang during the election in Mike Harrington's TechCrunch House in Atherton during the first Obama election.
Oh, way before that, though.
2008,
No, no.
right?
That's 2008. I think I remember doing it even earlier than that in the lead up, like 2 years earlier than that.
Mm.
So 2006. And TechCrunch started 2005. And I think Gillmor Gang was already a thing when TechCrunch started, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a thing.
So
but it was not a
Sorry.
video thing. It was
It's audio.
live audio,
Yeah.
Twitter Spaces kind of thing.
Ah,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Oh, speaking of Clubhouse,
We weren't really, but okay.
we always are.
well, somebody asked me a question, so I took the opportunity of answering.
By the way, got another comment. We need to start paying attention to, like, comments and stuff. They're good usually. But somebody was Cynthia Holiday Loosely.
Yeah, she's a longtime viewer.
See, there's a lot of longtime viewers
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And what did she say?
She was trying to help you remember the name of the conference, the web.
The web.
Ah, thank you.
I already said that.
So wasn't it in 2003 or 4 that it started?
Yeah.
I believe so. That's what I said.
3, I'm not sure. I'm trying to look it up. It could be 4. It could be 4.
Well, speaking of the Beatles, I have the domain for survivingbeatles.com.
And who else would want it?
Well, I don't
Ringo?
know, but I'm
Big
going to
Ringo.
NTFs are the thing. So they're about to be back on the airwaves, and from the trailers that I've seen, it looks quite terrific. Thanksgiving Thanksgiving is the first one, and then the following 2 days are the second and third of them.
Is that on Apple Plus or something, or?
No, it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, Disney Plus. All right, well, it's free. I can watch it then.
Here I looked up just Gillmor, when the Gillmor Gang start, and I do see this one reference to Groove's Ray Ozzie chats with Gillmor Gang, and that was in 2004.
And I believe today is Ray Ozzie's 66th birthday.
Wow. He's younger
Wow.
than me. He looks older than me. Sorry,
Oh,
Ray.
let's hope he's not watching right now there, Keith.
Sorry, Ray. I actually spoke to Barry Spencer this week. Barry Spencer was Ray's lead engineer with and Mitch Kapoor's on Lotus 123 version 3.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, I was a huge fan of Lotus Notes. That's kind of where I got, crossed the bridge from only caring about Apple to other things.
Well, I don't remember what it was called, but Ray Ozzie produced this other Lotus app which had hyperlinks between documents. Do you remember what that was called? It was the first time I'd ever seen a hyperlink. It was before Tim Berners-Lee, but it wasn't HTTP. It was just a link to another doc.
Wow.
I think I know what you're talking about, but my feeling about Notes was that although it was a huge Windows app, that it really was a forerunner of what we see as the web.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
it allowed you to create a over the wire. There was a conspiracy of opportunities with Microsoft injecting TCP/IP into the Windows, not just the Windows NT stack, but also the Windows for workgroups, Windows 3.1, the consumer version.
I even remember before that, Steve, when that Boston group who were spreadsheet centric, the first guy, remind me of the first guy's name who did the first spreadsheet, the guy with the beard. I know him really well. I'm just blanking on his name.
Yeah, me too.
With Bob Frankston is his friend. Gosh, I
Bob
apologize.
Frankston is the Professor Irwin Corey of technology.
Yeah, I love Bob Frankston. But anyway, back in 1982, I had a Tandy TRS-80 and Multiplan, which was the first kind of spreadsheet that came out of that whole Boston scene that was commercialized. And what they had in Multiplan was linked spreadsheets. So I could do January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, individual spreadsheets. And I could automate using names, by the way, like sales and revenue and things, pulling it all in to a single annual account system. And that was my first ever programming, was linking spreadsheets and adding together numbers from underlying spreadsheets into an annualized account system. And it was all done with names and links.
Brent, you've got just a couple minutes before you have to jump. Any final thoughts?
Nah.
Okay, well done.
I'll
Michael,
do this. I'll give you my my farewell via Cabby Lane, since you guys you're not a few of the 120 million that are following him that didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I'll just, do one of these.
And I want to know how much GoDaddy is paying you for the product placement on your chest.
Hey, I liked it. They gave it to me for free. I wear it. Give me a Gillmor gang, and it'll be showing up everywhere I am.
there's your build batter back, Bill.
Say that again, please.
I can't.
Batter.
Okay, we're going to wind this up with Michael Markman. Last thoughts.
New Betty Crocker product. Build better batter.
Build better batter back.
That's when you flip the pancakes.
I think, okay, it should be baked better batter. Do you think?
Bake, yes.
Are you going to settle on that, Dennis? Is that your thought?
I like that one.
Half baked better.
Half is better than nothing at all.
Half baked is pretty good.
The half-baked Congress speaks. Keith.
So I bought one of these this week
Oh,
with two of these, and entered the multiverse for the first time yesterday.
Wow.
And I didn't talk about it on purpose because it's a pretty short thing, which is, it is actually awesome, but no one's going to do it.
all right.
Okay. And I guess I want to thank Frank Radis for his. I said something and he didn't say anything, right? No, he said something about half-baked.
Half-baked. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to thank our paying attention producer and director, Tina J. Gillmor.
Ooh, all right. Thank you guys. Really nice show.
I want to thank Frank Radis for his contributions. By the way, in celebration of the next week's holiday, there will be no live recording, but it's possible that we will be on Clubhouse during the week for continued merriment and celebration of Congress's inability to do anything.
I do have a slight issue with that because on Clubhouse, you can't see me do things like.
But we can take
True.
the screen grab and
We can
And
make
make
it your icon.
It's true. You can make that your icon.
Nah, it's already taken. Yeah.
thanks to you
That
folks.
was your face.
Yeah.
Ooh, what?
Nothing.
No, you can. You've got a unique version with your face.
That's true.
Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again, not next time, but the time after that.
But
Bye-bye.
it'll be the next time. It just won't be next week.
Ah, picky.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.